Park Center and a very long time member of the medical community in Newton. And he's gonna do a presentation entitled What's New in Memory Care, share a little bit about that, and then myself and my colleague Matthew have some other information that we'd like to share with you today. So with that, I'll turn it over to Dr. Edwards.
Okay, thank you. I better get my glasses out because I can't see. Thank you for the introduction. Just to keep things clear, one, I'm not an expert at Alzheimer's disease by any means. There's a lot of people a lot smarter than me. I have done family medicine for a long time, and of course we all know there's a lot as I age and other people age, we see a heavy burden of dementia, so I have quite a bit of personal experience in dealing with this topic. The other thing, I apologize for having this talk at 1 o'clock. 1 o'clock is usually my nap time. I know. So if I fall asleep, please someone wake me up. And if you fall asleep, we won't disturb you. I have one commercial here that I wanted to start with. First of all, this is a vast topic. We're not going to cover everything. There's a lot of controversy, so some things I say, other people may disagree with, which is perfectly acceptable because there's lots and lots of stuff going on in dementia care in our state and in our country and in the world. Just one political comment in which I just learned yesterday, in the Senate, our state Senate, there's currently a bill winding through the committees to fund dementia or memory care specialists in all the area aging associations in Iowa. So that's a very cool thing. So if you are politically active or know you're a legislature, they're looking at funding the state to get in the 6 different portions of the state, Alzheimer's coordinators or dementia coordinators, a better word for this, to help with coordinate care in those areas. So that's, again, that's something I just learned yesterday, so that's really a neat thing. So that's my political comment today. So what are we talking about? I mean, what is dementia? And basically, because there's lots of, when the doctor says, oh, I think your dad has dementia or your spouse has dementia, what is that? What is that exactly? Well, the overwhelming definition is basically a decline in cognitive performance over your baseline. So it's kind of a very generalized term. So I don't like that when somebody comes to me and says, oh, the doctor said dad has dementia. I said, well, what type of dementia? I go, well, I don't know. I said, well, we need to know more than that, because in our area, as over the world, there's basically 4 types of dementia, but 4 major types of dementia. And most of us are familiar with some of these names anyway. Of course, there's Alzheimer's disease, which in itself has many different subgroups. There's early onset Alzheimer's disease. There's a chromosomal or genetic form of Alzheimer's disease, which tends to be earlier and more severe. There's later onset Alzheimer's disease. There's mixed dementias along with Alzheimer's disease. So Alzheimer's disease is one very common one. The other one that we see probably more so is a vascular dementia. What the heck is that? I think what I describe that as what we used when I was studying, it was the old hardening of the arteries. What is, why? And that's more of a medical problem. It's a completely different diagnosis, completely different treatment. And we need to know, and when we're treating someone, which one they have, or do they have both, which is not that uncommon. I see in my practice, or I have seen in my practice, in Iowa, lots of Parkinson's disease. I don't know if you've seen your friends, colleagues, spouses, there's a ton of Parkinson's disease in Iowa. And why is that? I don't think anybody knows, but it may be related to some of the same reasons that we have quite a bit of Alzheimer's disease in Iowa. And then there's a subgroup which is not as common, but it was Lewy body dementia or Lewy body disease, frontal lobe dementia. That's more characteristic by hallucinations. Again, but the main point of all this is these are all different diseases. And they're all treated, they're diagnosed differently, they're treated differently, and they have different clinical courses. And so it's, again, this is just an awareness thing. Just telling someone they have dementia is not enough. It's not enough. And then, so why do we care? Who cares? You know, why are we having this talk? Can anybody raise their hand and tell me they've not had a family member, a spouse, a father, a parent affected by memory loss? Anybody? Nobody in your family has ever had memory loss?
They've had memory loss.
Everybody. I would like to see hands on anybody who's not had that experience in their family. I bet there's not very many. So why do we care? We care because it's important. This is affecting us. It's affecting our parents, our colleagues, our spouses. It's super important. I'm going to throw some brief numbers out here, and keep in mind a lot of this data is old, and the data is all over the place. But the latest data I got just this morning in 2011, which is a long time ago, there were 4.5 million people over 65 in the United States just with Alzheimer's disease. That's a lot of people. The incidence of Alzheimer's is expected to double. So after age 60, the number of people with Alzheimer's disease doubles. Males and females are about the same, so it's not really protective. More women are diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease than men because they live longer. So there's more women with Alzheimer's disease, but that's because they're alive, and the guys aren't. So we get different statistics, but at least Alzheimer's, or dementia, I should say, is the second leading cause of death in the United States, second to heart disease. So it's a big deal, and it affects all of us. And it's going to get worse. So not everything I'm saying is happy news here. In fact, most of it's not very happy news, to tell you the truth. But it's going to get worse. The burden is going to get worse as we're seeing aging populations, and that's going to be a big challenge, both socially, economically, for our country as well as the entire world. The last data I saw for dementia was 66,000 Iowans are struggling with dementia, which is about 11% of the population. So this is not a small problem. Those numbers are probably underestimates. Lisa will give you some closer estimates to home here about what's happening in Jasper County, which is a big deal. And another interesting statistic, which I just read today also, 73,000 Iowans are receiving unpaid care or providing unpaid care. So again, when we look to the socioeconomic burden of this illness, there's 73,000 people who are, again, spouses, family members, caregivers, volunteers that are taking care of these people with dementia in their homes. That's a big burden. And again, a lot of those people end up needing higher levels of care, which is one of our big challenges. So who's going to get Alzheimer's disease? Who's going to get dementia? What are the risks for that? One, family history. This is very strong in my family, to be honest. Both my parents, I have two brothers actually suffering. So if you have a family history, that's not good news. And there's a couple reasons for that. There's certainly a genetic form of Alzheimer's disease, which if you inherit that gene, there's nothing you can do about that. There is genetic testing. I don't know why anybody would want to do that test. I don't want to. But there is that. And then some of it's inherited because of the other health issues that go along with dementia, or especially vascular memory loss. So what are the main risk factors besides genetics? Well, a lot of it's that, in my opinion, is related to vascular health. Going back to the old hardening of the arteries. How do you keep your arteries healthy? How do you keep your blood supply to your brain healthy? Well, you have to treat medical illnesses to do that. Treat hypertension, treat diabetes, work on obesity, keep your weight under control, quit smoking. You know, we're seeing a significant decline in smoking. Throughout the world, there's some rebound, but we need to quit smoking, treat high cholesterol. So, and it does make a difference. Treating those things makes a difference. Some of us probably, I bet there's not too many smokers here, but you know, some of us probably smoked when we were younger, so water under the bridge. But we need to get to the doctor, get those routine studies, and treat those illnesses to the best of our the best we can. What about environment? That's a big deal in Iowa right now, right? We're talking about Roundup, and there's a lot of controversy of that. Bear says that Roundup's fine. A lot of people in the state don't believe that, so I don't know the answer to that one. But environmental factor, we know that air pollution is an environmental factor for dementia. So the other causes, I mean, in my opinion, if air pollution can be a cause for environment, what's wrong? What about our water pollution, our other environmental toxins, alcohol, which is not healthy for you, and you know, we don't have the best water. So I think there's a lot with environmental toxins, but that's a huge area of research and controversy, and not easy to solve. So I think that's we need to continue looking at, and I personally think that has clearly an impact on the cancer rate in Iowa. We all know that Iowa has the second largest cancer rate in the United States, and that cancers are growing. 2 states in the United States where the cancer risk is growing. I think the other one's Louisiana. I know the second one's Iowa. Why is that? I personally think that there are environmental issues that are dealing with that, and that's going to be a ton of research. So we need, in my opinion, we need to keep looking at that to see what we can ameliorate. There are social factors that can contribute to dementia. First of all, can everyone hear me okay? Because I want to make sure we're okay. Okay, good. There's quite a few social factors, which I think some of those are, well, one commonly named social factor is low educational level. Well, and that may be because people with higher educational levels have more reserve, maybe, I don't know, I think that's pretty unclear, but it's pretty clear that in educational level it does have an effect. Other kind of social factors are hearing loss and visual loss. You know, we rely on input from our vision, from our hearing to process information. You can't process that information, that's bad. I personally know this. I have lots of visual loss, I have some hearing loss, and you know, it's a challenge, and I'm sure most of you guys, or many people here, probably have similar issues. So what can you do? Well, you do the best you can. You treat your hearing loss, you wear hearing aids, you keep your vision healthy, but those certainly have an impact. Social isolation is a big factor. Well, we live in rural Iowa, but that doesn't mean, but we also have very strong families in Iowa, in my opinion. But social isolation is a big deal, because you can be socially isolated in the middle of the city, of course, but that's a big deal, and clearly related to decline in function. Depression, untreated depression. Well, I get depressed about every day when I wake up. I say, darn, I gotta go to work. But that's a true thing. If you know, many people as they get older do have some depression, and I'm not here to push antidepressants as a treatment for dementia, because that's not true, but recognition and treatment of late life depression is definitely a factor, a social factor. Inactivity, and this could be mental inactivity. You know, you guys are here for a reason, because you're interested, you want to learn stuff. I applaud you for that. You've got to keep your brain working. Now, that's a really hard thing to prove. You know, you read, and there's a lot of unclear science here. Because you can go on the internet, you can buy programs, et cetera, that says we're gonna work your mind. And so let's say Sudoku. Does anybody do Sudoku puzzles? The math puzzles, right? Or crossword puzzles, et cetera. Well, they've pretty much shown that doing those makes you better at doing those puzzles. So I do those things because I say, well, maybe I need to keep my brain working. So I'm getting better at that, but that doesn't mean it's going to prevent dementia. Should you keep doing those? Yes. But we need to keep our brains working. We need to stay active. We need to be reading. We need to be interacting with people. We need to be playing bridge. We need to be doing those things because they help keep you, one, they help avoid social isolation for out doing things with people. We need to maintain physical activity also. So we are looking for more volunteers to mow the Ulan Hoop land. We already got one guy, but he's not that reliable. No, but, and everyone has different physical activity levels and desires, and as you get older, we can't always do everything that we wanted to do before. But some sort of physical activity, I think, is extremely important. Other issues, sleep apnea is not kind of a tough issue. And maybe I should have mentioned under medical issues, but sleep apnea, a lot of people have undiagnosed sleep apnea. It does matter. If you have sleep apnea, you're probably not getting, when you're not breathing, you're not getting oxygen into your brain. And so if you have sleep apnea, if your spouse snores like crazy, if they stop breathing at night, you should probably get that evaluated and treated. And that's getting easier, but I think it does make a big difference. There's a couple other simple medical issues like, you know, B12 deficiency, low thyroid levels. Again, these are things you should probably be going and talking to your doctor about, making sure you get in there for those screening tests, have them look at. So there's a couple easily treatable things that can prevent dementia, but you can't get that, you can't do it unless you go to the doctor and get those testing done. I'd like to touch, I don't really want to get too much, there's a lot of medicines out there, and you know, and again, this varies widely with your diagnosis, because the treatment of Parkinson's is different than the treatment of Alzheimer's disease, and the treatment of Lewy body dementia is different than the treatment of Alzheimer's dementia. So I think it's beyond the scope of this talk to go into each one of these medicines, but if I'll be available here afterwards. If somebody says, well, my doctor says I should take this medicine, what do you think about that? Or I have a question about this particular medicine. I'm happy to hang around and talk to anybody but I don't want to really go into, you know, you should take this medicine and this medicine. The bad news is most of the medicines don't do very much, to tell you the truth. We do know that the commonly used drugs for Alzheimer's disease, Aricept being the most common one there, or Namenda, in early stages given to the person with a proper diagnosis, can slow the progression of that disease. So should you take that medicine if you're in that situation? Probably. Is it going to prevent you from progressing? No. It will slow the progression. It can keep people at home longer. It can keep them recognizing people. It can keep them out of nursing homes, etc. So those medicines have effect, but they're not going to stop the progression. There's some new IV medications which are widely touted, and I've never seen anybody get those medicines. I've never seen any of our local neurologists prescribe those medications, and if you look at the risk of those medications, they're very high. So be wary of the headlines. Say we have this new miracle medicine for Alzheimer's disease. It's not a miracle medicine. I don't know who got paid off to okay that medicine. That's my personal opinion. I don't think it's a good medicine at all. I think the risk is, the benefit is minimal, the risk is high, the cost is extremely high. So I'd be very careful with that. The other common types of memory loss, such as we had talked about vascular, that depends on treating your blood vessels properly, and then again it goes back to treating cholesterol, treating diabetes, treating hypertension. So it is important to treat those illnesses. Parkinson's disease is is a tough one. Parkinson's, most Parkinson's patients get sent to specialists, rightly so. It's a difficult disease to treat. It tends to be progressive. There's not much that really affects the memory loss there. So again, and Lewy body dementia is similar. There's no drug out there. There's no miracle out there. So again, be wary of the headlines, and be wary of all the claims that we're seeing. So those are things we should do. And again, medicines are pretty a modest factor of all that. Well, what should we avoid? Again, avoid social isolation. Everybody's got different personalities. Some people like to do a lot of stuff, some people don't, but social isolation is extremely important to avoid. And again, appropriate treatment of depression and hearing loss, visual loss are important. This might be a hot topic, and there might be some controversy about this or disagreement. What about every time I go on the TV, there's a memory loss supplement, a new drug? Today I learned about lion's mane. I don't know what does anybody know what lion's mane is? Well, lion's mane prevents memory loss. I learned that today on the internet. So be wary of the stuff out there. So, and then when I go walk to Walgreens, there's a whole aisle of vitamins, supplements. You know, you can't go on the internet, you can't go on TV, you can't go on without somebody trying to sell you something that's gonna do something. And so be wary of this stuff. We know that B12, if you have B12 deficiency, you need to take that. Otherwise you're gonna get more dementia, among us other problems. So that's important to treat. Thyroid, yeah, if your doctor says you're low thyroid, you definitely need to treat that. What about a multivitamin? Should I be taking a multivitamin? I don't. But what if your diet's crummy? I mean, what if you have a terrible diet? Yeah, that's okay then. I don't think it's necessarily unreasonable to take a multivitamin. It's inexpensive, it's harmless, and I think people do have some dietary deficiencies that can be helped with that. So I'm kind of okay with that, but don't think that this is going to change the world. What about vitamin C? Take a multivitamin, but don't spend a lot of money on it. It doesn't cost anything. Lion's mane, I can't comment on. Apparently nobody else knows about lion's mane either. So that's kind of fish oil. Fish oil 10 years ago was a big deal. Everyone needs to take fish oil. It's gonna, of course, whenever something cures everything, it's maybe not that good. I actually did take fish oil because at the time they said this stuff is great. It's going to prevent heart disease. It's going to prevent dementia. The studies have shown that it does none of that. It's probably good to eat fish in your diet. There's some, as part of a healthy, well-balanced diet, eating fish is probably a good idea. But is taking fish oil going to hurt you? Probably not. But it's really not necessary. It just hasn't proven to help. Vitamin D. Interesting. I read conflicting, even today I read conflicting claims on vitamin D. We've learned a lot about vitamin D. I went through the whole vitamin D thing because we never used to check for it. In fact, the U.S. Task Force on Preventive Medicine recommends not checking anybody's vitamin D level. Now, that's them, and everyone else says, oh yeah, you gotta check vitamin D levels. But I don't know. The studies have not been conclusive. In fact, the recent studies have shown vitamin D doesn't do anything for osteoporosis either. Can you find an osteoporosis doctor says don't check your vitamin D, make sure it's okay? No. So this is a very controversial thing, but I think it's, especially with the bone stuff, I still oftentimes will check vitamin levels, make sure people's vitamin D is adequate in their normal range. And no, it's not, because now we know there's significant toxicity to too much vitamin D. So that's a story yet to be told, how that's gonna all end up in the next couple of years. But the early studies on giving people vitamin D, even for osteoporosis, are questionable. So what do? You tell someone to do this for 10 years and then you say, oh, well, that didn't help, sorry. That's a problem. It's just the way medicine goes. Prevagen, should I take Prevagen? If you look at the studies on Prevagen, the studies they cite are done in people with normal cognition. So they took people that have normal memory, they gave them Prevagen, and a month later they said, how are you feeling? I feel great. Okay, there you go. So is Prevagen gonna hurt you? Probably not. Is it gonna make your memory better? Probably not. Is it a great marketing? Yeah, they got great marketing, obviously so, because they're making a ton of money. So if anybody says, hey, I'm taking Prevagen for my memory, I said, that's fine. But be careful what you believe. If you delve deep into their studies, they're done on normal, people with normal memory. And their endpoint is, do you feel better? Well, yes, okay, then it works. So again, just be wary of what you're spending your money on and what you're doing. How about antioxidants? I know there's a lot of stuff out there on antioxidants, right? You look on the TV, there's all sorts of commercials, the green stuff, the carrot stuff, the orange stuff. Are those gonna make you live longer? No, probably not. Are they gonna hurt? Probably not. You know, is it good to eat? You know, you can buy fruits and vegetables in a capsule now. So you look on TV, I took my vegetable capsule and now my life day's gonna be good. Okay, maybe you should just eat some vegetables, I don't know. So again, just be wary of what we're spending money on and be wary of the claims that are out there. Because it's big money, all this is big money. What about marijuana? Probably not. I'm not a big fan of cannabis. I don't think there's no valid studies that show cannabis has any positive effect on dementia. And there are actually studies out there on the use of hallucinogens like LSD. There are studies out there that claim that these are the new miracle drugs, and they're not. So again, just be very careful what's out there. Again, there's lots of money changing hands over this stuff. In the bottom line, there's no miracle drugs out there. So what do we do with my spouse or my father who has early dementia? I can tell they're not, well, I know personally, I'm not the same as I was 5 years ago or 10 years ago. I applaud those that are, but I know I'm not. My memory's not the same as it was 10 years ago. It's just not, I'm getting older. So what can you do when you start to recognize this? It's stuff many of you guys have already done, and it's the reason you're here listening to this talk. Have good nutrition. And I know I'm kind of going over the same thing over and over again. A healthy diet. Is there any particular diet? Well, minimize salt. Eat fish. Good idea. Eat plenty of fresh fruits and vegetables. Stay away from the junk. It's kind of hard again in our society. You go on every commercial and it's all chicken fried. Everything's fried, right? It's pretty ugly stuff. So work on nutrition. It's difficult to be perfect because I like a lot of good stuff. I like a lot of chocolate. Well, chocolate's good for you. I saw that on the internet today too. So eat as much chocolate as you can. Say that. The other thing in early memory loss is family support. Again, this goes back to social isolation. Having a supportive family is definitely helpful. because those people that don't have that are clearly at risk. And because they're at risk for eating poorly, we all know that if you're, when my spouse is out of town, I don't eat as well. You know, I eat what's there. So people that have social isolation tend to have poor nutrition. And some of that's just a fact of life. But if you have people that are socially isolated, you know, get them nutrition, get them Meals on Wheels, instead of which, I'll throw in a Wesley positive statement here. Wesley, many probably don't know, but Wesley, this is a Wesley subsidy here, but the Wesley group in Des Moines is sponsoring a huge Meals on Wheels program in Des Moines. They've spent millions of dollars setting this up. It's a fantastic program. So healthy nutrition is super important. And along with that kind of Meals on Wheels program, you help social isolation because they visit these people every day. And you can read testimonials over and over again how that helps their lives. Oh, I got to talk to a live person today. The guy who brought me my food. So healthy nutrition is super, and it's all mixed in with the family support and community support. Treat underlying health issues. You know, why should I take care of my diabetes? Well, I don't care about I'm stopping my blood pressure medications. I don't want to take my thyroid medicines. If you have people with some memory loss, early dementia, make sure they get reasonable medical care. And that's getting a little more challenging in rural Iowa, as many of you already know. And our state is addressing that. How effectively, I don't know, but getting comprehensive medical care, and it's becoming more challenging in rural Iowa, and it's gonna get worse. I'm sorry about that, but it's not gonna miracle turnaround. Help your loved one maintain physical and mental activities. Again, the same thing I'm talking over and over again. And avoid things that make it worse. And we talked a little bit about that already. Smoking, alcohol. I'm not saying a glass of wine is gonna kill you. I have no problem with that. But excess alcohol is a huge problem in Iowa, in our country, and the rest of the world too. We have a lot of, but Iowa is one of the hotbeds for alcohol abuse or overuse. So take a look at that. You know, does my spouse really need that 5th beer or 6th beer? So that's important. Another tough one, and again, this is hard to quantify because we live in Iowa, we drink the water here. We know constantly every year we're talking about getting the water cleaner, and we need to support the people that are supporting that, in my opinion. I think that has a lot to do with it. And pesticides, again, we talked about, but environmental toxins, trying to minimize environmental toxins. That can be pretty difficult and controversial also in Iowa. So things are progressing. What about later care? I want to talk a little bit about this on memory units, because and then we can, if you guys don't mind, Lisa's got about a 10-minute thing about our memory care unit here, what we're doing here. But we're kind of jumping over the middle, and actually, or maybe I should actually say a little bit about that, because there is a large number of people in the middle here. And this is creating a large financial burden, emotional burden on many families in Iowa. We talked about the number of unpaid caregivers. And we are seeing a large number of people that, and I just went through this with my father-in-law, and I go through it with many families. Dad's getting worse. I can't get him to the bathroom anymore. He's incontinent. He's not eating. He's falling down. What are we going to do about this? There's a huge care gap in Iowa and the rest of the country for people caught in the middle here. I don't want to send my spouse to the nursing home, right? Nobody wants to do that. But when does it come? And like I said, within the last 2 months, went through this in my family, my father-in-law. It's a very, very, very difficult situation. I'm telling you guys things you probably already know. You know, he's not good. He's not good. I said, we need to get help. And they didn't know, we'll wait another day. Well, why? Well, it's expensive. Nursing homes are expensive. It's a heavy financial burden. The availability of adequate care. We have great care up here, not perfect by any means, but it's tough. And there's a lot of places that don't have adequate care, and that's going to get worse also. Nursing homes in rural Iowa are closing all the time. We're losing lots of nursing homes. So do you want to send your spouse to West Des Moines? Who wants to do that? That's, so this middle group is a very, very social difficult. Well, what are we doing? We're going to, hopefully we'll support our state. Our state is not unaware of this. Maybe they should have acted sooner, but that's water under the bridge, of course. So they're looking at this and trying to get more people involved at the state level. That's a good thing. I'll put another plug in for Wesley, just so, and because Wesley has just started, Wesley has home care, and home health care is a great part of this thing, so getting more help. And there's private companies, Home Instead, there's public health nurses, there's Wesley Home Care, there's multiple home health care agencies that can help people keep them in their home, which is generally Medicare covered if they qualify. Some of this, much of it's private pay, again, quite expensive. I know Wesley just started or launched a palliative care program, and I'm not trying to advertise Wesley. I am a little bit, but only because I think it's a good thing. What is palliative care? Palliative care is an attempt to keep people in their homes that don't need to be on hospice, that don't need to be in a nursing home, but have complex medical problems, social problems, and that's where a palliative care program helps. Many of the palliative care programs in Des Moines have closed already. I think there's one other one that's just online. Well, I'm not a big fan of online doctors. How many of you guys like to talk to online doctors? I don't. You do if you have to, because that's the way of the world. But Wesley has an in-home palliative program, which is just getting started. Maybe you guys could tell us more about that, or I don't know all the details on that, but it's going to be a very good program to help. Well, what about later on? What if someone needs a memory care unit? Well, what's that? Why would they need that? Well, you just can't take their memories so poor. They're not functional. They're losing weight. I'm 90 years old. I can't take care of my spouse anymore. I just can't do it. So most memory care units, as you know, are locked units. Why are they locked? Well, it's for the safety of the residents, not because we want to keep people locked up, of course. They focus on those memory units are safety, keep people in a safe environment, to provide adequate nutrition, and really the focus on care in a memory care unit is a stable environment. What the heck is that? We want to have people have as close as possible to a home environment as possible. That works. That works better than drugs for treatment of memory care. It's a lot better than our pills. You put people in a safe environment, they have a stable room, they have the same caregivers. Hey, I'm comfortable with this person because I saw them yesterday. I don't know their names, I don't know who they are, but I know that I know them. So this is a thing we have up here with very good staff. Same staff, good staff retention, but not a lot of turnover, which is a benefit to how Wesley treats their employees. It has to have adequate lighting, which is our place is great. And get a home environment, routine, a good safe routine. Appropriate stimulation. I have been to, I hate to say this, memory care units where there's 50 people sitting doing nothing. And that's not conducive to good health. And, but it has to be appropriate stimulation, to the level of what you don't want to overstimulate, because that's bad. So it's a proper balance of stimulation. And then an environment where the families can get involved. All the time I see people, when we have put someone in the memory unit, well, should I come visit them? Yes, of course come visit them. We want you to come visit them. You need to come visit them. So that's super important. We want to make, it needs to be an environment where the families are welcome and can feel comfortable also. And you have to have proper equipment. It's good to have food there, that's made there, so people can kind of understand this is kind of like home. You have to have the proper bathing environment, so people can be treated with respect and modern equipment. It's just try to make it a home life as much as possible. And I certainly can go into the medications that we use there, but really the medications are a small part of the deal. And I'm happy to discuss that in detail if anybody wants to talk about that. But the medicines are not the focus of treatment in the memory unit. And what we're going to see here, and this is my opinion only, we're very extraordinarily fortunate to have this community here in Newton, Iowa. You know, this is a big deal. If you go to Waukee, you know, we see such places such as the Wesley community popping up in communities that big population and big money, and you know, kudos to you guys who invested in this place, because it's a huge benefit to our families and you know, to our community. So we are extremely fortunate to have Wesley here. So because there's not going to be, I guarantee you, over the next 10 years, next 20 years, is going to be really, really stressful in rural Iowa for the small towns to care for their elderly and the rural residents. It's going to be very stressful. So I'm going to kind of close things down a little bit, but let me ask if there's any questions. Yes, sir.
Should we be taking cognitive tests on a yearly basis to see how we're doing?
That's a great question.
And which one should we take?
Another great question. Part of, and I do this because I'm old, so I go in, part of the Medicare wellness exam, which is recommended, is a cognitive screening evaluation. So that's a very simple, quick screening test. That's a reasonable thing to do. And then depending on how you do on that, then you can go further. I know the clinic has, and it's been implemented over the clinic where we now can do online a much more aggressive, let's say, man, your mini mental status exam or whichever one they're using, I'm not sure, there's 2 or 3 different exams. It's a lot worse than it was. And you say, yeah, they can do online testing that's much more sophisticated and decide whether you need to be referred on. Because now this is a failure, I think, of our state university. 10 years ago, University of Iowa had a memory clinic. And you could refer someone to the memory clinic, they'd probably get within 2 weeks. And they would get the appropriate testing, which we can always talk about more, you know, the blood tests, the brain scans, the things like this, and that's getting much more sophisticated. And now we're working in, as this accelerated, then it took 6 months to get an appointment there. Then it took a year, and the University of Iowa, your state university, closed it down. They said, we're too busy, so we're just gonna close it down. So if you wanna get memory testing at the University of Iowa, it's almost impossible, which is a failure, in my opinion, of the state university, but that's a whole other issue. So it's very difficult it's not impossible, but to get a neurologist or to do what we call neuropsych testing. These are these very sophisticated cognitive testing that takes several hours. They're out there, it's just getting harder and harder to get those tests, which is that's unfortunate. Yes, ma'am.
I just got a text from the Newton Clinic. May I ask you about this, since you were a doctor there?
Sure.
Hello from the team at Newton Clinic PC. Our records indicate that you may be due for an annual wellness visit.
Yep.
Is that what you're talking about?
Yep. So this is kind of off the subject of the aging, and this is a real thing. So Medicare, this is developed over the last 10 years. I don't know exactly when they started it. They did do a study. If we get Medicare patients in and ask them about do some, it's not a physical, but we check about the only test you'll get is you'll get a blood pressure check, you'll get a brief cognitive screen. They ask you about your immunizations, they look over your medicines, they ask you about social isolation, they ask about depression. And what they found out is by getting Medicare patients in once a year to just go over these basic things, that people got better care and Medicare saved money. So when I go there, I like, well, what was that good? I already knew what medicines I was taking, etc. So it's hard to figure on a case-to-case basis that did me a lot of good. And a lot of times it's probably marginal benefit to someone's in good health that doesn't take a lot of medicines, that not have any problems. But on a population basis, it does work. So we do recommend that, and actually there's gonna be more and more pressure for people to do that. Why is that? Because the doctors get paid for that. And it's also a quality measure now, so doctors get paid oftentimes in clinic setting on quality measures. So the old days, you saw 20 people that day, you got paid for 20 visits. But now the federal government pays you, you have to have quality measures. You have to have, 50% of your patients have to get the annual wellness visit. If they don't, you're not gonna get paid. If you do, you get so much money. So it's a quality measure. So the reimbursement to physicians has changed dramatically. So you're gonna see more and more of that kind of stuff, and you'll get more and more pressure that you need to get in and do this.
So as our medical director here, you highly
Yeah, I do it.
Thank you.
I do it. It takes about half an hour.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
It keeps your clinic afloat.
What?
It keeps the clinic afloat.
Yes,
That's a good thing. It's good to
Yes,
have
it is.
a clinic in town.
yes, yes.
The way it would be terrible if we would lose our clinic. It would be terrible. Yes, ma'am.
If B12 is so important, why aren't you guys testing for it when you test for the other things that you do on the blood count tested? Anyway,
I do. So when you go to your doctor, say, we check my B12 level.
okay.
I mean, I think,
It should be.
especially
It should
if
be.
you have it's not, so we go back to the US Task Force on Preventive Medicine. It is not a recommended routine test.
But it should be.
Well, it probably should be.
And
It's a harmless test. It costs almost nothing. If you find you have B12 deficiency, it's important to fix it. So I think, and certainly anybody who has a cognitive deficit should have that checked.
Thanks.
And so, yeah, I would probably argue for that. I agree with you. Any other questions? Again, I'm going to say a couple other things here, but if somebody has any other specific questions, especially about the medicines, I didn't delve into the medicines because it's so complicated. But if anybody has any questions, please, I'll be hanging around. I'm happy to talk a little bit more if anybody has any questions. So we talked about memory care briefly, and what's best. So when I turn the TV on, the only thing I ever get is commercials. So we have a little bit of a commercial. So give us 5 more minutes of your time or so. Just as a point of awareness, we've been working for a year. We want to revamp our memory care unit to make it better. The memory care unit is about 25 years old, and the care has changed, and the standards have changed a little bit. So, so there's good reason for us to keep working on making this a better, the best place. We have the best place in our community. We want to continue that tradition, so there's a fundraiser going on for that, which we're almost done with, in fact. And we've had great support from the Wesley community here. It's been fantastic. But Lisa was going to give an update on that, if that's with your permission. So I'll turn it over to her.
Yeah.
And thank you.
Thank you.
I'm gonna just get my computer up here, so give me just 1 second here to get this going.
On the stomach.
Yes.
Thank you.
But Dr. Edwards did a wonderful job. I was able to learn a lot from his presentation as well. I have dementia on my mom's side of the family, and so certainly something that hits close to home for me personally, but also professionally, and just really appreciate Dr. Edwards and everything that he does for Park Center. We're very fortunate to have him as our medical director, and that's obvious by how many people are here today to listen to him and all the knowledge that he shares. Let me just get this up real quick. He did a really nice job talking about the project and the importance of this project, and let me get this slideshow started. So, as he mentioned, Park Center does have long-term memory care. This is a very vital service that we are providing to the community. A lot of you are Park Center residents, and the thing that hit home with what Dr. Edwards was talking about was social isolation. I know that that is a really big thing, and I think that pandemic kind of helped to make that even a bigger thing, social isolation and loneliness. And a lot of you have joined this community, and so you see the benefit of being around other individuals. But memory care certainly is a very in-demand service, and we're gonna share a little bit about that, just a little bit more, but mostly just about this project that we are really excited to be working on. Garden View is our memory care. We have a total of 17 rooms, 16 of those are private rooms, and 1 is a semi-private room, which means that we can provide care for 18 individuals at a time. We have an average occupancy there of 96%. Usually it is like right there at 100%. The times it's dipping below that is when maybe there's a transition in between residents. And as Dr. Edwards was sharing, individuals who are living in Garden View are really those individuals that are more late stage dementia. Dementia is a progressive disease, and as they progress through that, the individuals that are at late stage are the ones that are really needing that 24/7 care, and that's what we provide to them in Garden View. We definitely are seeing a growing need for this level of care in Jasper County. An estimated 11.2% of Jasper County's population aged 65 and older have been diagnosed with Alzheimer's, compared to 11% statewide. So we are just a little bit above average for our county with those that have been diagnosed with dementia. Park Center is the only non-profit organization in Newton that provides dedicated memory care, long-term memory care, and consistently has the best outcomes of any memory care service in the community. Again, that's thanks to Dr. Edwards' work and the team of individuals that we have working in our health center and the excellent care that they provide. Garden View was built about 25 years ago, and as Dr. Edwards said, that their standards of care have changed over the years. One of the things I like to relate to is when you walk in there right now, you see a nurse's station. Well, that was the standard of care 25 years ago, to have a big nurse's station. It isn't now because of technology. The charting is done on computers versus sitting at a nurse's station. And so it's just not as conducive to best practices for where we're at in dementia care right now, especially a lot of those that have emerged over the past 5 to 10 years. Our vision for this project is to improve the well-being and health span for those with dementia by providing high-quality, person-centered care and extraordinary experiences. We've been working on this project for a year, and it's very exciting to see the progress that we've been able to make. But everything that we are doing is based in evidence-based research, and we have 3 goals that we want to achieve through this project. The first one is to enhance person-centered care model through interventional activities, including spaces for activities, create a home-like environment to increase health span, and sustain a person-centered approach through education. And Dr. Edwards talked a little bit about that home-like environment, how important that is. And that is a big part of this project. For goal number 1, to enhance person-centered care model through interventional activities, These are things that Brittany and the well-being team that they really focus on. They do a fantastic job here. Definitely a highlight of the Park Center community at every level of living. And this can include purpose kits, pet therapy. The outdoor garden is a very big part of that. We know that getting outside and having fresh air is important. How many people's moods have changed this week by the fact that it is 50 degrees outside instead of -10? It has a real impact on you. And we see that even with our individuals living in Garden View, how important that is. And we want to create that into a beautiful outdoor space that can be usable for those residents. The home-like environment is where a big part of this project is going to be focused on when we talk about the funds. This is where a lot of it's going to go to. We want this to feel like their home. We want not only residents but their family members to walk in and feel like this is home, this is comfortable. And right now it's a little bit institutional, and so we want to take that away and make everyone feel comfortable and good when they go in to visit their loved one. A part of this project is to make the kitchen more functional. Right now they can't fully cook up in the kitchen in Garden View because they don't have a commercial hood. So we will be putting that in so that they can bake chocolate chip cookies. They can do grilled cheese and tomato soup on a cold wintry day, and different types of activities like that. I notice this now with the bistro being open. I walk down on that main level and I'm smelling that food and I'm like, oh, what's the special today? I can smell it. We want that for our residents back there too. It also includes things like adjustable beds for independent movement, an updated spa, again, for the dignity of our residents. Small things like door hardware, soothing paint colors, natural lighting, all of that really plays into our goal of creating a home-like environment. These are some renderings and some photos of the types of finishes and the feel that it's gonna have once we do this renovation. This picture here shows that big nurses station, which will get removed. In the big common space, they're gonna have a dedicated space for activities, and then what I like to call a connection space with family, with seating that family can come in and be able to sit with their loved one. And so this is some of the finishes that we will have in the central lounge, they called it. Here's some photos and renderings of the kitchen and dining room space. Right now, they're using the same space for dining, for eating, for activities, and like relaxing, and we really want to give a designated space where individuals can eat and have a dining room. And you can see the kitchen here and then what it will look like in the rendering once they're able to complete the project. Here's another view. They have a very beautiful sunroom that isn't getting utilized as much as it could, and that will be transformed into the dining room. The spa, the photo on the left is what the current spa looks like, and the one on the right is what we are envisioning it to look like, something very calming, very natural. I enjoy going to a spa, and we want it to have a nice experience for our residents. And these are some photos of the types of finishes that they're looking at for that space. And then goal number 3 is sustain a person-centered approach through education. And we want to make sure that we're always learning, that we're always continuing to strive to be the best that we can be in providing care to the individuals living in Garden View. And so for this particular goal, we are working to have an external professional trainer come in. That trainer is going to train other individuals, so then we can train everyone through the Wesley Life community. And we were very fortunate that we received a $5,000 grant to help with this specific goal of the project. All of this is wonderful, but we want to make sure that it's really meeting the needs of our residents, and we want to be able to measure the impact that it has. And so there's a lot of different ways that we'll be able to do this, which can be through participation in activities, nutrition intake, behavior management, decrease in the number of falls, family satisfaction, and team member engagement and satisfaction rates. So this is the fun part, I think. We launched this a year ago. Our goal was to raise $1 million, and we are at 86% of that goal to date, which is absolutely amazing. It is only through the generosity of the community that we're able to do this. So we feel incredibly grateful that our project has resonated with people and they have felt compelled to be able to invest in this project in the lives of our residents and our team members and their families. So we have a wonderful committee that's been put together. Dr. Patrick Edwards and Susan Schiller Fortune are the co-chairs. The other committee members include Dr. Lonnie Barton, Sherry DeCook, Mike Kaldenberg, Steve Knight, Sarah Patterson, Sophia Ahmad, who is Wesley Life's VP of Philanthropy, and myself. We are continuing to raise funds through the spring. Our goal is to be able to start the project later this spring, once we get to our fundraising goal. We know this project is going to be a little bit different than a normal construction project where you could just go in and just build something from scratch. This is an area where there are residents living, so we want to be very mindful of that. So this will be phased so that we can cause minimal disruption to our residents that are living back in Garden View right now. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Matthew Johnson. He's my colleague from the Wesley Life Foundation. He just has a couple things here to share and we'll wrap up.
Perfect. In conclusion, I just wanted to say it's been an honor, our team, being able to work with Lisa and Mary and the leadership here at Park Center, as well as that community-led volunteer group that has made this project possible. As Lisa said, we are currently at 86% of the $1 million goal to make all of those things that she just shared become a reality. That has been possible because of 32 total donors in the community that have made this, made a commitment to this project, including 6 Park Center residents who have supported this project. Marlene Chumley, Sherry DeCook, Katie Jones, Artis Morgan, Jean Schnell, and Betty Ward are all residents who have heard about this project and have been willing to support the work that and the impact that it will make possible. Would also like to share some key donors from the community who have made this project possible. I'll go into that 86% that has already been raised. So the Maytag Family Foundation, Schiller Family Foundation, the Jasper Community Foundation, Jeff and Jody King, FNNB Bank, the Geisler Penquit Foundation, Chris and Danica Barton, Tim and Janet Onen, and we also have 100% participation from that committee that was shared before. So everyone who is out there making this a possibility, they are also generously committed to making this a reality as well. In conclusion, we are here today to invite you to consider a gift to be a part of this campaign too. We know that there are all sorts of donors who make a campaign possible, but if you'd like to learn a little bit more, we do have the information that Lisa just shared, as well as a pledge form if you're interested in making that commitment to this project. Every gift level is different for every donor, but if you could take the time to consider perhaps a $25,000 to $5,000 gift to help make this project a reality. And gifts to this campaign are paid over 1 to 3 years, and we can be even more flexible up to 5 years if that's important to you being a part of this project, as well as your Does anyone have any following questions for Lisa and I on the project implementation of this side, or any other plans that we have to make this a reality? Well, as I said, we do have some informational packets, so if any of this is of interest to you, please stop by in the back of the room and we'll be able to provide you that and answer any questions.
Yes, so thank you all so much for coming today and spending some time. There are some refreshments at the back if you'd like to grab something, and I know Dr. Edwards, it sounds like he's on a call right now, but he is planning to stick around. If you have individual questions that you would like to ask him, please feel free. I know with him not practicing anymore, this can be a good opportunity to maybe ask him a burning question that you've been looking for an answer for. But certainly, if you have any questions about what Dr. Edwards has presented on or about this project, we're here to help and answer any questions you may have, so thank you very much.
Thank you.